What's up, Mortgage Coach community? Dave Savage sitting down with Owen Lee. Owen, this is the first time I've interviewed you for the Mortgage Coach community, and I'm trying to get a lot of different executive level perspectives from executives who've been through multiple cycles to just help everybody, whether it's a CEO or a head of production watching this, a branch manager, or regional. I want them to be able to, get your perspective on where we're at in the market. And I also want to kind of land in this conversation. What do you think the best opportunities and strategies are to win? We're not going to break any records in this market, but we could win in this market. So
absolutely.
First, tell everybody a little bit about who you are, your role, how long you've been in the space.
Well, my name's Owen Lee, and I'm the CEO of a company, Success Mortgage Partners, and we're based outside of Detroit, Michigan, in a town called Plymouth. We're in 38 states, and we did about $3 billion last year, and tracking a little over $2 billion this year with the different marketplace. But I've been doing this 20 years. We founded our company on May the 1st, 2002. So this is our 20th year doing it. And before that, was in the title insurance industry, which I still have a big toe in the title insurance industry, and was a practicing attorney before then. And the mortgage business has been a great space for me, and I love it. And I love doing everything I can to participate in it and bring better people in and share ideas, and really appreciate the opportunity today.
Good. Well, thank you. And really enjoyed your sales rally that I spoke at several months ago, and also appreciate that you, in full disclosure, he is a client and a partner of both Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang. So thank you for supporting our mission of no borrower left behind.
Yes.
So you reviewed the halftime report. Any thoughts on that, and anything that surprised you, or anything that you thought was like, hey, my big takeaway was X?
Sure. Well, I think it really has to do with, how different the market is today versus where it was 6 months ago, even 12 months ago. And, some of those projections that you had in there, it was incredibly informative to see, sometimes when you're in a changing market, and we have been through several together, you have this bunker mentality, and you're in your office, in my case, in Plymouth, Michigan, or, who knows, Texas, Florida, California, wherever. And you kind of think, hey, I'm in the bunker alone. And from reading, your halftime report, it's very clear that nobody's in this bunker alone, right? We're all in it together. And it's very clear that it's a different world. So I think you have to, identify your goals differently, define success differently, and really change the way you operate. And I think that's the biggest thing, is changing the way you operate, turning the page in your mind. Okay, this isn't 2020. This isn't 2021. I have to change my frame of reference, right? 2020 and 2021 were not real markets. They were government-induced cocktail parties, which we all enjoyed, right? But clearly the punch bowl was left at the cocktail party a little bit too long. Now we're, paying the price the next day. But it's important to get back out there and to, continue to define success, continue to try and achieve success, continue to try and win. But you also have to change your frame of reference, because 2020 and 2021 is not the proper frame of reference for today's market.
So I think you might have created a new meme that 2020 and 2021 were government-induced cocktail parties. I think I had not heard those words put together yet, but I think everybody's like, yeah, you got that right. So yeah, and it's funny. I think we will look back on these times, and it will just be a blip. And so what was, if there was something that was enlightening to you after reading the halftime report, is there anything that was like, I hadn't thought of that before, or any actions you're going to take that might be differently, or just biggest takeaways, however you want to answer that?
Well, it really was, I've been having this kind of percolating thought in my head, especially over the last 6 months to 12 months. And when I saw some of the people that were interviewed for the halftime report, people that are successful in the industry, people that I look up to, we try and emulate or compare ourselves against, is this overriding thought about continuing to induce, continuing to interject technology in how we work on a day-to-day basis, how we reach out and find borrowers. I really believe that what we're going through right now, and turbulent times only exacerbate this and make it happen faster. I really believe that over the next 2 to 3 years in the mortgage space, there's going to become the haves and the have-nots. And the haves and the have-nots and the middle will kind of divide into one or the other. And the haves will be people that use and embrace technology. And the have-nots will be people that don't. And I'm not saying the have-nots are going away. I'm not saying that the mortgage space is going to become the travel agents of the 2020s or anything like that. But I do think it's going to become harder and harder to earn a living if you're one of the have-nots, because borrowers will simply have been gotten, and I know that's probably not correct English, but they will have been gotten or picked off by somebody else further up the food chain who somehow reached out or got in front of them quicker because they knew they had a need than, the old distributed retail. I'm a loan officer and I have 5 realtors that refer me 2 to 3 borrowers a month and I convert on them. And I'm not saying that that's going to become a thing of the past, but I think that realtor that might have 4 or 5 referrals in a month is now going to have 2, because more and more people are coming to him or her already with a lender in hand.
Yeah, no, I entirely believe that. And I think between COVID massively accelerated the digital transition that's taking place in all financial services. And I do think this contraction in the economy is going to further require the people that want to be the haves and be the winners and to gain market share to not only accelerate the investment. I'm still shocked how many lenders don't have borrower intelligence. How do you not want to keep every loan you ever did? And it's less than 10% still. So I think we'll see a massive acceleration with sales boomerang. And I kind of think it's going to be 50-50. I still think there's going to be 50% of the industry. They're not going to die or go to business, but they're not going to be gaining market share. And it is going to be harder for them. And then there's going to be the haves that are armed up. What are your thoughts? You think it's 50-50 haves and have-nots with tech, or do you think one side is more lopsided than the other?
I think the split's going to be a touch more stark than that. And because I think that, I'm not saying the folks that don't adopt technology are going away. We sell a product that is the largest financial decision that most people make, whether to buy a home and how to pay for it. So I think a lot of people are going to, reach out and use this cell phone more and whatever. I don't think it'll be 50-50. I think it'll be more like 2/3, 1/3, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of folks in the middle. I think the people that are going to adopt technology are going to win more and more, at the expense, quite frankly, of the folks that don't.
Cool. Well, we are here for any executive or leader that wants to be in that 30 winning. It starts with borrower intelligence and advice-based digital presentations, mortgage coach.
Yep.
So what about, I still am, I don't know where I'm at on it yet. I want to ask you this question. The data a couple months ago was pretty clear that we were trending to have the 3rd best year in 15 years. And, the past 2 years, spike, and we're kind of getting more towards a normal. And I haven't re-looked at that for a couple of months. Do you still think we are still, trending to have the 3rd best year in 15 years? Or do you feel like maybe it's getting a little tougher and we might need to adjust that thinking? Maybe we're having the fourth or fifth best year in 15 years. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I do think it's a bit tougher out there than that. When we went into 2022, we all knew that the Federal Reserve was going to stop buying mortgage-backed securities. We all knew what that was going to do to interest rates. But we seem to be in these business cycles that, and I think the 24-hour news cycle, immediate information, plays a big role in this. But things aren't based upon fundamentals. Things are based upon where people think the fundamentals might be 6 months from now and try and race there first. So when interest rates started to go up, they went up faster, I think than just about anybody predicted they would. If someone would have come out in November and December and said, I think we're going to see interest rates this year for a portion of the year that begin with the number 6, they would have been laughed out of the room. So I think we've definitely reached the point where interest rates are affecting people's buying decisions, right? If we were at 2.875 and we went to 3 and then we went to 3.5 and then we went to 4, market's still very active, people still very interested in homes. But then you get up to the 5.25, 5.5, 5.75, let alone touching 6. And I think it's definitely gonna, when the book is written on 2022, I think it's gonna have more of an effect on the purchase number than maybe some of the experts thought at the beginning of the year. So, whether that's makes this the 5th best year or the 6th best year or whatever it does, I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be, when the book is written on 2022, I think the volume numbers are going to be, less than the 3rd best year on record. I do.
So challenge anyone listening to this. I think the data based off the MBA forecast in May, so rates had already gone up. We were at 4, but we weren't with a 6. The forecast been adjusted that, hey, we're still expecting to have the 3rd best year in 15 years. And that chart is available in the Mortgage Coach Facebook group, check it out. But what do you think it's going to be? You think it's going to be, we know it's not going to be number 1 or number 2, like that's off the table. Is it going to be number 3? Is it going to be number 4, number 5? I'm looking for predictions to help the community. Everyone wants to plan. We want to win, gain market share, hit our best case assumptions, but we also want to make sure we're managing our businesses so that we can survive worst case predictions. So I want to know, guys, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think we're on tap for like a 1.8, 1.9 trillion year. If interest rates float back down to, 5.25 or 5, or get back into the 4s, we could push that number up a little bit over 2 trillion. But, my guess would be the way we're trending right now, when people are scared and, when you see inflation at 8, 9%, wholesale inflation at 10 or 11, when they're scared, they tend to sit in place, shelter in place and do nothing. And I think that's affecting the purchase market right now.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on this? I mean, it's never been more important for a loan officer to be an advisor, to be able to, it's not a vanilla market anymore where everybody's doing 30-year fixed. We need to be able to look at ARMs. We need to be able to show seller buy downs. We need to help families understand affordability options. That's why I think the 2-1 buy down and the seller buy down, it's getting talked about and it's trending in our community. So one of my thesis is, head of Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang, that it's never been more important that you're getting every lead out of your database, you've got alerts, and 2, you're delivering a digital advice-based presentation, and pretend all your loan officers are listening right now. What are your, I think it was valuable last year. I think it's like 10 times more valuable this year. What are your thoughts?
Well, you have to lead with information, I think, because if you really think about, and information given in the way people want to receive it, right? The face-to-face consultation, come into my office and sit down with me and go over this. I mean, heck, most of us aren't even back in our offices, right? Most of us are still working remote, working out of our house. The whole COVID thing kind of destroyed the office environment. So if you get back to leading with information, you're going to need a digital tool to lead with information. And when we talked about before, when people are uncertain, right, when people are kind of sheltering in place and don't know what to do, you have to educate them. How do you overcome that? Well, you overcome that with knowledge and facts and information, and helping them look at it in a way in which you can they can digest it. And it really, when I read the halftime report and when I looked at it, one of the things that just really stuck out at me was how much help people need with financial literacy. I mean, it really is striking. We're in this industry every day. A 2-1 buy down, or paying points on a mortgage, or analyzing, ARMs seem great right now because that starting number is lower. Depends on what your frame of reference is. I'm sure, two older guys like you and I, Dave, I mean, my first mortgage was at 8.875 and I was damn happy to have it. So, what's your frame of reference on what's a high interest rate? We need to help with that education. Where do you believe inflation is going to go over the next 3 to 5 years? Well, maybe a 5.75 30-year fixed rate mortgage is high. Maybe it's not. You go back to that 2002, 2003 refinance boom, which was one of the biggest on records and was the biggest on record. Rates never got down into the mid fives. So it depends upon what your frame of reference is, but leading with information, leading with education is super, super important, because when you look at those financial literacy numbers, you're assuming that people have knowledge that they don't have. And if they don't have the knowledge, it's going to be harder for them to come to a decision one way or the other.
Yeah, and you need to make it visually obvious. I see a lot of lenders on social media, making the case that, hey, it's never been a better time to buy a house. But I think in many cases they're not having enough empathy. Like, they're not showing, hey, it is tough, but let me show you the numbers. I'm gonna go through as we wrap this up the report, guys. So we'll put a link down below. It started with data. And I'm not going to go through and revisit the data, but the first third of the report is just data. And then there was some clear takeaways. Affordability is an issue, is number one. We made that the number one thing. Untapped equity, kind of number two. We talked about, innovations in technology. This is a little 5-minute video I started in 2000, not 2000. I started this in 1986, but this is a picture of me in 1992.
Who is that handsome guy?
Yeah, right. You gotta like that. And guys, this was the beginning of the technology era, and this is a few years before I founded Mortgage Coach. But I had landed on this concept that my advice makes a difference. And then I was just trying to look like a guy who's had a costume on, gold watch, Mont Blanc pen, $1,000 suit. Which, by the way, I wasn't that guy, so that's
fancy
why
computer in the background.
Yeah, right. Back in the day, my original CRM, by the way, it worked pretty damn well. But when we look at this market we're in, big data, you've got to have data. I believe that if you want to be in that, I'm still going to believe that it's going to be half the industry. I respect, and I would not bet against you that it's going to be a third. Like not going to bet against that, but I'm going to work like hell as an innovator in the industry to get at least 50% of loan officers no bar left behind. Got to have big data, got to have automation. If you've got CRM and you're not using it, guys, you're going to be in that losing half or that losing 70%. So you got to remember, anyone who is a mortgage coach and Boomerang client, they integrate. So now when the alert's created, the TCA is created. This is something I want to talk about real quick, conversion. So I think it was okay for the past 2 years that we've celebrated how many loans did you close, because it was exciting and record-breaking, how much volume we did because it was exciting and record-breaking, but no one is going to be excited about their numbers this year. And I think it's a year, and I want to challenge you, and I want to see your thoughts on it, that we start tracking conversion by loan officer. You know, we start looking at, you know, some loan officers cost less than 10 basis points. Some loan officers are costing more than 70 basis points in price exceptions. And I want salespeople and loan officers to think about that as that's your sales score. Like, how good of a salesperson you are, the less price exceptions you're costing the company, the better salesperson you are. So if you're in the highest, most profitable 10%, you're one of the 10% best salespeople. If you're in the high, but what are your thoughts about really starting to scorecard that the same way we've scorecarded, you know, how many loans you closed? This is how you production. This is what your conversion is. This is what your profitability is, and we scorecard that and we celebrate it. And no one wants to be in the bottom of the list. What are your thoughts on that as an executive?
Well, I think we have to do that. I know we've started to do a lot of that again in our company. And the reason why we're doing it is simple, because you can't make intelligent decisions without that information. If you just look at it in 2020 and 2021, you know, you didn't have to measure productivity as much. You know, you're selling a 3 1/8 mortgage, you know, servicers are going to pay for that. You know, mortgage investors and correspondents and aggregators are going to buy those mortgages all day long. But when you look at a finite number of revenue that's available for a mortgage, you know, a loan officer that needs 10 basis points in an exception is more valuable than a loan officer that needs 50 basis points. A loan officer that knows how to measure their conversion, that knows what their metrics are and takes steps to meet them, is more valuable than loan officers that don't. And if I'm going to make intelligent business decisions at our company, I have to have that data in order to do it. And one of the challenges this year has been using those muscles again that we really didn't have to use for, you know, 24 months. I mean, what we're going through now is a lot like the second half of 2018 and the first quarter of 2019, when the industry is under stress. But when interest rates started to come down the second half of 2019, and then, oh my Lord, the pandemic and Federal Reserve buying record amounts of MBS, we didn't have to use those muscles for 2.5 years. So you have to measure that stuff. All those things that were important in previous years to make intelligent business decisions.
Love it. I couldn't agree more. Are you going to, I mean, clearly, you know, to do that for the C-suite so that you can make intelligent business decisions. I think a lot of people, if they're not doing that, they're going to be able to do it. But what about making that transparent at the, you know, branch manager, loan officer level? So the same way we have a scorecard that shows production, everybody knows who's the best converter, who's the most profitable. Are you going to make it transparent and easy to consume for everyone, or is that going to be something that management has to make decisions?
Oh no, we're a big believer in Power BI reports inside of our company. So we do monthly Power BI reports that, you know, has volume and what the loan officer's expenses are, and, you know, how are they, you know, tracking on their pricing, and you know, in a good way. And then, you know, we look at that, and we do look at it monthly, but we, you know, obviously we make our LO comp decisions in 100% compliant way. And, you know, we only change those about once every 6 to 9 months, but we really use that data and we share that data, because if you're in a partnership-based company, you should want to share that information with the loan officer. How is he or she going to get better? How is your relationship going to improve if you don't share with them what actions cause them to do well and what actions cause them to do not as well? So we do that with Power BI reports in our company. We share a lot of that information with branch managers and loan officers.
Great. So let's wrap up with some last thoughts here. So conversion is critical. Now, Kristen and I, as we aggregated all this data, we came to some conclusions that if the loan officer becomes the captain of the wealth team, and we really, as an industry, say we can be the most valuable advisors to a consumer, more valuable than a financial planner or CPA, because we have more data on the consumer. And so we think that that is a very important strategy, that if you want to optimize, you got to leverage technology, and you have to have a strategy that I'm going to be this captain of the wealth advisor. I'm going to lead with education. I'm advocating that we start making it a requirement that when we do help a first-time home buyer, we also give them a rent versus own, so that we're qualifying them, and we're also providing them with a little bit of financial literacy around what home ownership means versus renting. Only takes a couple minutes, but things like that, where we really integrate education, experience. I think we should also, in addition to measuring conversion, profitability, and retention, we should also stack up customer satisfaction, and make sure that you guys are the industry is aggregating that, using video to scale. For anyone that wants to see a seller buy down, Nicole Ruth did a great job. She actually used the total cost analysis. This is an example of it, and she compared, down payment, 2-1 buy down, permanent buy down, 3-point buy down. I would propose anyone listening to this, watch that. It's a good lesson. I also want to call out at the bottom of this report, every interview that we did, we transcribed it. We put it in our YouTube channel. There's actually a playlist. So if there's any leaders that you want to read it and you want to see the transcript, guys, there is a link to that. And there's also a video. So you can hear exactly what was said. I am planning to add you. Would you be cool if I edited the report and added this interview and maybe made some edits to the content with you?
That would be totally fine. I would love that. And if you could make me a little bit better looking for the video portion, that would be great too.
No need for that. So let's close out with, you've got executives, you've got loan officers, and people who are playing the long game. What's your closing thoughts and leadership message to anyone listening to this as we wrap up?
Well, I think in a year like this year, you have to dive in. You have to look at your data, and you have to know it's correct, and make intelligent decisions. There was this guy in the early 2000s named Alan Mulally, who famously turned around the Ford Motor Company. And he had a saying that said, they were really screwed up at the time. I'm from Detroit, so we have a tendency to relate everything back to the auto industry. But he had a saying, and it was, the data will set you free. Don't be afraid of it. Ross Perot, when he was running for president in the early 90s, said, never be afraid of the crazy old ant in the basement. You got to get down there and embrace the challenges and make intelligent decisions. You got to empower the people that are helping your company. I love the leading with education, because if you don't deliver that, people are scared. Scared people who don't understand do nothing. It's still a great time to buy a house. Learn how the best way to educate the borrower is. Jump in and do it. But most importantly, jump in, know your data. Don't be afraid to make good business decisions, and keep worrying about making your company just a little bit better tomorrow than it was yesterday. And you'll get through this cycle just fine.
Yeah, and I believe that the people that invest in technology, I do believe it's going to happen fast. Within 2 to 3 years, everybody is going to have borrower intelligence. They're going to have data on their customers, but the people that invest in this marketplace are going to gain market share. This is going to be a market share growing market. But you got to, and then that's the closing thought I have for everyone. You got to invest in technology, but you also got to invest in training. One of the recommendations of this is that we've got to get our branch managers doing effective weekly sales training, where we're taking our tech, we're taking our philosophies, and we're institutionalizing it by doing weekly sales training that's effective. And we give some recommendations on that. I've done a lot of interviews on that. That's my closing thought.
Well, get in front of your people and talk about it all the time. Give them opportunities to learn it and get better at it, and recognize the fact that as great as 2020 and 2021 were, you could be very successful in that environment by not adopting technology. You cannot be successful in today's environment without adopting technology. And so you've got to change what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Owen, thank you for the time. Thank you for the wisdom. Thank you for being such a great client partner. Anyone listening to this, give it a like if you got value. Share this with your mortgage friends, your leadership team. Make sure you're subscribing to the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel. I think there's a lot of noise and busyness on social media that may not be making you better. But my goal at Mortgage Coach with our YouTube channel, with our Facebook group, with our blog is it's not noise, it's value. Replace some of that Netflix time with Mortgage Coach time. Take care, everybody.
Yep. Thank you.